Old Grognard says, let's read what the D6 Star Wars RPG 2nd Edition Rulebook gives us for Gamemaster advice. One of the things I really like about how the Gamemaster section is set up in this book is that the game is designed so that a person who has no idea what a role-playing game is can not only figure out how to play it, but also how to run it as a GM as well. The Gamemaster section is basic, and a lot of its advice is specific to this game. However, it does a good job of breaking down the fundamentals so that a person with no experience can jump in and run the game. One of my personal beliefs is that people spend too much time trying to find the secret or advanced technique to get one up, when they would be better served by just mastering the basics. Well, with that out of the way, let's jump into Chapter 2 in West End Games Star Wars RPG 2nd Edition Rulebook on page 21. Chapter 2, Game Mastering. So you're considering being the Game Master for your friends. Now you want to know, what have I gotten myself into? While it may sound like game mastering is a hard job, if you remember the basics outlined in this chapter, you'll do just fine. Your job. The Game Master's main job is to make sure that everyone has a good time and that everything is resolved fairly. Of course, this may not always work no matter how hard you try, but it is your ultimate goal. All of the tasks of game mastering are directly related to helping you make the game entertaining for yourself and the players. If you and your players are having fun, little else matters. The Game Master has 3 main roles: referee, storyteller, and mood setter. All of these roles are oriented towards telling a good story. Envision the player characters as the stars of their own Star Wars movie, and you'll start to get the right idea. Game Master as referee. In your capacity as referee, you have to make sure that the players are following the rules. When there is an argument, you have to resolve the conflict in a fair manner. However, the story is more important than the rules. When the rules get in the way of the story, fudge a little and get on with things. When you choose to ignore some rules, you have to make sure that you are being fair to the players. If you fudge a rule to benefit a Game Master character, when a character is in the same situation, you should give the player the same benefit. You're the boss. You are in charge. As the Game Master, you have the responsibility for making the final say. You have to keep the story moving, interpret the rules, and tell the players what they can and can't do. Be fair. You have to earn the players' trust when you Game Master. You must be fair and impartial, not favoring the players over the Game Master characters, nor favoring one player over the others. Sometimes the players will disagree with you about a decision, especially if it negatively affects their characters. You should take into account their feelings, listen to their reasoning, and try to smooth things over, and then make your decision based on what you feel is right. The players may be able to persuade you to change your mind once in a while, and that's fine. However, if you give in too often or too easily, the players will try to take advantage. Be challenging. Adventures are supposed to be a challenge to the players and their characters. It's important to remember that while you play the roles of the villains, you aren't trying to beat the players. You are all working together to tell a good story. Play the villains according to their personalities. Give the players options, and leave them some room to make mistakes or to take into account bad die rolls. Give the players a break. Sometimes the players will choose to do something that's not too wise, especially if they are inexperienced. Part of game mastering is making judgment calls. If the players do something like this, give them a break, the first time. Don't kill their characters, although you have every right to penalize them in some other way. Have them arrested or take away their equipment. Tell the players what they did wrong, explain that you gave them a bit of a break, and suggest to them what they should do when a similar situation happens in the future. If they don't learn from their mistake, next time let the rules do the talking, even if it means killing off a few characters. Example: the characters are walking down a hallway in a top-secret Imperial complex. They come within sight of a group of Imperial stormtroopers. One of the newer players panics and decides that his character will throw a grenade at them. You know that this is a bad idea because the explosion will alert the whole complex, but the players haven't thought of that. You can teach them by using the following result. After the smoke clears, the characters rush up to the stormtrooper bodies. One of the troops' comlinks whistles, asking,
Unit 5, what was that noise? Why haven't you checked in duty post 27? You're 3 minutes late.
You suggest to one of the players that they should respond. They ask, but what should we say? You suggest that they try to trick the guard. Pretending to be a stormtrooper, one of the players should explain that the patrol was caught in a chemical leak in one of the nearby hallways. It caused a lot of static on the line, and that explains the noise. The leak is now under control, and maintenance droids are fixing the machinery, so there's no need for further investigation. The squad will be all reporting to the medical center for decontamination as soon as they have supervised cleanup. Then you explain to the players that they might want to use a little more stealth and a little less weaponry while they are still in the base. You should remember that this should only be done for players who honestly don't know any better. This may seem a little heavy-handed, but new players will appreciate the help. Be careful you don't go overboard with this help. It is easy for a game master who knows the scenario to look at the player's actions and say, "Boy, that was dumb." Maybe it was the only choice the players could see because of the information you gave them. Try to see why they are making these decisions instead of stepping in and playing their characters for them. The game. Star Wars is supposed to be fast. Laser bolts fly fast and furious. Starships duck around asteroids, and aliens challenge characters to duels in cantinas throughout the galaxy. The story should move as fast as possible to reflect the nature of the Star Wars universe. In order to fulfill this ideal, you may find that you have to pare down the rules in some circumstances. The rules are detailed so a game master can incorporate many different factors into the game. If you can run things faster by approximating, don't hesitate to do so. A good example of this kind of customizing the rules applies to skills. Most skills have specific rules for what various difficulties are, in addition to a long list of modifiers that may affect the die roll or difficulty number. If you need to speed the game up, don't worry about the modifiers and just choose what you think an appropriate difficulty would be. Do this. You're trying to con an Imperial Stormtrooper into thinking you're an Imperial Colonel. Because you have the uniform and the rank insignia and a high command skill, the difficulty is easy. Not this. You're trying to con an Imperial Stormtrooper into thinking that you're an Imperial Colonel. Let's see, flipping pages. Your basic difficulty is moderate, because the con doesn't involve any danger and the trooper isn't emotionally involved. And that means a number between 11 and 15, how about 12? With a modifier of +5 to your roll because the stormtrooper would probably do this anyway. Okay, roll. You may want to be a little less casual about the rules the first few times you play, but you'll be surprised how fast you can learn to approximate things. It just takes a little practice. Distancing yourself. When you game master, you have to play the role of the enemy. Yet, you also have to be fair and impartial. How? Practice is the best way to learn. When you are refereeing, using the rules, you shouldn't care what happens to either group of characters, player or game master, as long as the rulings are fair and the story isn't ruined. When you play the role of the enemy, play them as if you were the actor portraying the character. Think like the character would, have the character do what they would normally do in that kind of situation, and most important, Only have that character respond to what they know, not what you know. As Game Master, you often know exactly what the players are doing. Often, the Game Master characters will not. You should play the Game Master characters based on only what they would know. Game Master as storyteller. During adventures, the player characters are the stars of their own Star Wars movie. Adventures focus on the characters, where they are, who they meet, and what they do. The player's only job is to play their character. The Game Master gets to do everything else. Come up with basic plot, design the planets, cities, and locations the characters will visit, create the people the characters will meet, and make sure that the adventure is exciting and action-packed. A good story. First, the Game Master has to make sure that the adventure tells a good story. There has to be a strong plot with a good villain, or a series of incidents which place the characters into an exciting and dangerous situation. The characters need something to do. The characters need a motivation to get involved. They should have objectives that they want or need to accomplish to resolve the story, and there should be a reward of some kind at the end of the adventure. Mere survival can often be a reward, but other things like money, equipment, love, gratitude, friendship, and saving the galaxy are important too. Making the characters important. The player's characters should be integral to the action of the adventure. Think of the Star Wars movies. They are about Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia. Therefore, it is up to the Game Master to write a story that the characters can be an important part of. When the final battle with the central villain occurs, the characters should be a big part of that battle instead of standing on the sidelines. The adventure revolves around the characters. The galaxy doesn't. While the characters' adventures are important to them, the characters are probably not that important to the galaxy at large. To put it simply, it's a big galaxy, and there are always exciting and dramatic things going on in other places as well. For example, the adventure might focus on the characters crossing a nefarious bounty hunter, and their efforts to throw him off their trail. Exciting and dangerous to be sure, but the characters clearly aren't the center of the universe. They might be missing out on a big battle between New Republic soldiers and Imperial battle cruisers several sectors away. But they could hear about it later. This adds flavor. The character's adventure can be part of a larger story. The characters may think that they are merely espionage agents in the service of the Rebel Alliance, but later learn that they are only a small part of a much larger effort to undermine Imperial security. Characters may be being manipulated by forces beyond their control. In the course of their adventures, a minor Jedi player character may find themselves drawn to a strange world. Upon arrival, they learn that agents of the Emperor are rounding up as many young Jedi as possible in an attempt to sway them all to the dark side of the Force. Here, the characters are being affected by a master plan that is epic in scope. Characters are often affected by events beyond their control. The adventure might involve the characters smuggling goods for a mysterious employer. When they stop at their destination, they learn that they have been sent to a secret rebel base. Then, the Imperial fleet shows up to destroy the base. When the characters arrive at the base, they find that they've been forced into the middle of something that they never expected. Worse yet, they have to find some way to escape, since if they are captured by the Empire, they will be executed for being traitors. Keep it fast. Make sure that your adventure outline has plenty of action and interesting things to do. Action doesn't mean non-stop battles, but it does mean using tension, character conflict, humor, and mystery to keep the adventure moving at high speed. You already know that you should trim the rules to keep the story going, but the story itself has to be fast-paced too. Stories where nothing happens are boring. Start the story off with a bang. A battle, a chase, a mystery, or any other dramatic event. Then, give the players a couple minutes to catch their breath, and then bam, right back into the action. Star Wars adventures are broken down into episodes, each with several different scenes which advance the plot. Each episode should increase the tension and keep the action rolling. For more information on the elements of good adventures, see Section 2.2, Designing Adventures. Illusion of free will. Star Wars is a game where the players are free to have their characters do what they want, or so they should believe. In your own life, you are free to do what you want. Go to school, quit your job and move to another city, go over to a friend's house, open a business, whatever. You are free to do these things, but many of them are impractical. Your Star Wars characters have the same kind of freedom. When they go to a spaceport, if they can't get a flight to a certain planet, there has to be a reason. The freighter captains want more money than the characters have, or there's a blockade of the world, or some other reason. When the characters want to do something you didn't plan on happening, you can't just say, "You can't do that." Instead, come up with a good reason that makes the course of action impractical or clearly not in the character's best interests. Here's an example. The players decide that their characters want to go to Corellia. As Gamemaster, you really don't want the characters to leave the planet because the rest of your adventure is set there. Rather than tell the players you can't leave, you throw one of the following excuses at them. The government won't issue travel visa due to an upcoming holiday, or the character's computerized records have been fouled up. All flights to Corellia are completely booked solid. No flights are available because the Empire has closed all lanes due to high levels of piracy in the system. Of course, if the players have their own ship, those solutions might not work, so they go to their vessel and find out it is being searched and probably impounded by stormtroopers, local officials, or, better still, the bad guys tied to the adventure you are planning on running. The characters take off for Corellia but find someone broke into their hyperdrive computer while they are on the planet, stealing nearly every program. They need to do something to get their programs back. Their ship is attacked by pirates, Imperials, or bounty hunters immediately after liftoff. The enemy has a large, space-only vessel, so if the characters dive back into the atmosphere, they can land somewhere safely. These solutions may frustrate the players, but they are believable in the context of the Star Wars universe. To help enhance the believability of such story controls, you may want to mention them ahead of time. A character overhears people talking about the blockade in the street, or on the local holovid newscasts. It is a good idea to set up these things in advance, even if your players seem to be heading on the right track anyway. Improvisation. Be warned. If you game master, you will be improvising a lot. On the other hand, it's a lot of fun once you get used to it. Sometimes improvising even results in a better story than what you originally had planned. No matter what story controls you use, the players will still go off the map from time to time. They will do something completely unexpected, and in a few seconds your entire adventure is derailed by an unforeseen action. This is where improvisation comes in. Make something up, quickly. If the players go somewhere that you never intended them to, start making up details about what they can see, who they meet, and what happens to them. If you can, adjust the adventure so that the characters can finish it at the new location, or try to set up encounters so that they get back on track to the original adventure. Sometimes the players will even help you along without realizing. When they hand you a plot idea, run with it. Example. The players have done something completely unexpected and Bill is making everything up off the top of his head. Bill has just described a spaceport cantina scene, mentioning that there are 6 Gamorreans at the table, all with the mark of the clan Bigtrug tattooed on their arms, a minor throwaway bit of color. However, one of the players comments that, "Gee, I wonder what they're doing out here, since the clan members seldom leave their planet unless there's a war going on." Bill's eyes light up at the mention of that. He decides that after the characters have a few minutes to consume a few drinks, he'll have a few more Gamorreans of a different clan wander in. Maybe there is a clan war going on. Timeout. Don't be afraid once in a while to call timeout on an adventure. Sometimes when your players go off the map, they surprise you so badly you can't just come up with anything. That's okay. There's a foolproof way of handling this situation. Tell them. Let them know that you are willing to continue on this new line of action, but you need a half an hour or so to replan. Send them out to get munchies. Let them go in the other room and watch TV. Maybe they want to read up on the rules themselves. Whatever. Then in the interim, you can come up with a few gimmicks to get the adventure either back on track or at least onto an alternate route you can run. It's pretty certain that the players would rather take a little time off than waste a lot of time while you try to figure out things off the cuff. On the fly. It is a good idea, especially when you have only game mastered a few times, to make up a few on-the-fly encounter situations you can throw in when things get too wild. Not everything has to fit the specific plot of the adventure, and you may be able to come up with something while the players are dealing with the encounter. This is even better than a timeout because the players might not even know that it happened. Responding to your players. Be responsive to the players. If they want to solve mysteries, give them a few. If they want to try to get rich running guns for the Alliance, give them a contract so they can make some deals. If they want to spend most of their time fighting the minions of the Empire, well, it's their funeral. Be aware of what your players find interesting and try to give them plenty of those qualities. If the players are bored with certain elements of your adventure, try to figure out what you can do to make it more interesting. Get feedback. The best way to figure out what your players enjoyed is to pay attention to what scenes they were replaying as they left to go home. When players talk about a particularly memorable adventure, try to remember what parts they emphasized. The climactic battle, the personality of the villain, or a humorous incident. When you run new adventures, use these kinds of elements to liven up the game. But don't rely on overhearing what they liked only. Ask them. After the adventure, and ideally a day or two later, check and see what they are interested in doing next. You may find out that the party is planning to do something you hadn't expected, like go to Corellia or track down a bounty hunter you introduced in an earlier story, and you can prepare an adventure for them. The Gamemaster as mood setter. Now that you've got an idea of what makes a good story, it's time to make it Star Wars. You've got to make the players feel like they are in the Star Wars universe. One of the toughest parts of role-playing is getting the players to suspend disbelief. All the players know that the Star Wars universe is imaginary, but in order to make the adventure interesting, the players and Game Master have to pretend that the universe is real. As Game Master, the more you can make the universe seem real, the more enjoyable the adventure will be for the players. Use elements from the movies. The easiest way to remind players that this is Star Wars is to use things that they have already seen or heard of from the movies. When they use technology, you can describe it as looking a lot like something that was shown in the movies. You've got over $50 million worth of neat, cool-looking aliens and equipment that was shown in the movies, so get maximum mileage from them. Throw in references to known alien races, like Wookiees, Solistans, or Gamorreans. When you describe a scene to the players, mention things like YT-1300 transports, or Imperial TIE fighters, or New Republic X-Wings performing patrol duty. The players should interact with familiar droids, like astromech units, R2-D2, and protocol droids, like C-3PO. You may also want to send the players to a planet that was mentioned or shown in one of the movies. They might end up on Tatooine and have to deliver a cargo to Jabba the Hutt, or they could be enslaved and sent to the spice mines of Kessel. There are famous personalities that the characters may hear about. They might hear an alien telling his friends about how he beat Han Solo out of a smuggling contract, or worked for Princess Leia's diplomatic entourage before the destruction of Alderaan. They might meet a bounty hunter who was on retainer for Jabba the Hutt before the gangster's demise. Show them pictures from this rulebook, or, if you have a VCR, set it up for spots you might like to show during the adventure. Why describe a Gamorrean or the Mos Eisley Cantina when you can show them? This holds true for new aliens, ones not pictured in the rulebook. If you introduce a character we created, you can probably photocopy the picture and put it in front of the players so they can look at it while they interact with the character. If you create the character, maybe you can draw it or find a close enough picture in a comic book or sci-fi art book. Give it a try. When you use elements like this, you have to make sure that the references are in the proper context. Tatooine only became famous because it was the home world of Luke Skywalker. No one had ever heard of Endor before the Emperor was killed there. The Empire ruled most of the galaxy before the Battle of Endor, yet after all that it fell in disgrace, losing over 3/4 of the territory it once controlled. Now just about everyone in Imperial space has heard the name Ewok. Exciting settings. Exciting settings appeal to the player's sense of escapism and curiosity. The Star Wars universe isn't Earth. Bespin is a great example of such a setting. It's a giant flying city, scores of kilometers across, hidden in the upper levels of a gas giant, with a breathable atmosphere no less. Tatooine is also a great setting because it is so unusual. A backwater desert world whose economy is based upon coaxing moisture from the atmosphere, with at least 2 mysterious native species, the Jawas and the Tusken Raiders, and the home base of the most infamous gangster in the known galaxy, Jabba the Hutt. When you design new settings, try to come up with characteristics about the setting that make it clear that the world is unusual. It may be as simple as using a binary or trinary star system, or giving the world an atmosphere so dangerous that humans have to wear filter masks. You might set an adventure on a huge mining space station or on a primitive backwater world that is subject to constant earthquakes or volcanic activity. Aside from basic settings, the characters will visit exotic locations such as spaceports, cantinas, droid stores, and bioengineering or cyborging stores. As Game Master, you should come up with exciting descriptions for these locations, as well as a listing of what is of interest to the characters. Fantastic technology. Fantastic technology is another integral part of the Star Wars universe. Blasters, starships with hyperspace drives, droids, repulsor lift airspeeders and land speeders, giant floating cities, and other such items set the galaxy apart from ours. When the characters are adventuring, be sure to use this technology. Don't be afraid to invent new items of technology either. Things like labor droids, new types of starfighters, new common devices like computerized security monitors, and so forth. When you invent new technology, make sure that it fits with the universe. If it's too advanced or powerful, it won't feel right, and will then balance the game. If you invent more primitive technology, that's fine, but make sure there's a reason it's being used instead of modern equivalents. For example, characters are likely to find primitive wheeled vehicles on backwater planets, but not on more modern ones. You can also balance new discoveries. Maybe the characters find a medical process that heals anything, including old age immediately, but it only works where they found it, or it is guarded by an ancient and powerful machine that demands tribute. Or the Imperials are on their way to capture it and the characters may have to destroy it. An example from the movies is the Death Star. Sure, it could destroy planets, but you need how many people to operate it? More than just about all the Star Wars characters in existence. No party is going to be able to capture it and go roaming around the galaxy. Or at least they shouldn't be able to. Interesting characters. Complex characters are a lot more interesting than characters that can be figured out at a glance. There are several elements that can help make a Game Master character interesting. A colorful personality, a mysterious history. No one seems to know what he did before a few months ago, or unusual appearance. The character always dresses colorfully, or has a gold-plated blaster. Game Master characters come from a variety of roles: villains, rivals, allies, neutrals, employers, followers, friends, and comic relief. Good characters will really liven up an adventure, while boring characters will make even a good story seem dull. Some helpful hints. This chapter has covered some very broad areas with only some general suggestions. Later sections will expand upon these themes, but for now, here are the most important things to remember when running Star Wars. You are in control. Relax, it's just a game and it's supposed to be fun. Tell a good story. Make the players feel like they are in a Star Wars movie. Use action, excitement, aliens, and fantastic technology to get the feel right. Be entertaining. Play your villains, describe the scenes, ham it up, and encourage the players to do the same. Use the rules to help tell the story. Never allow them to hinder the story. Be fair. The players won't mind if you fudge as long as you fudge fairly. You can't learn everything at once. You will make mistakes. Admit it. Say, oops, fix things to the best of your ability and get on with the story. Don't try to retrofit everything. Be firm. Make your decision and stand by it if you think you're right. Description. Role-playing games rely heavily upon a game master's ability to describe interesting scenes. Since the action takes place solely in the imagination of the players, the game master has to tell the players what their characters see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. A good description can give the players a strong idea of what the scene looks like. As game master, you should put some effort into visualizing each scene and setting, and then telling the players what they see. If you want to, you can draw sketches or maps of locations so the players can see the physical layout of the location. Example. At first glance, it could be a spaceport on any backwater planet. Huge circular pits, probably 40 or more, have been dug into the soft, rocky soil. From this distance, thousands of meters up in the air, the pits look like they're big enough to land Corellian corvettes, a good 150 meters long. From the center of the city, where all the pits are located, ramshackle buildings spread out in a haphazard sprawl, stretching out along several kilometers of barren soil. At the edge of the city is a rough wall several meters tall, with gun emplacements every few dozen meters. Your mysterious passenger, I am not going to try to pronounce that, the Duro trader, enters the pilot's compartment. He looks down, and a strange smile slowly creeps across his face. He turns to you, exhaling his foul-smelling breath, and says, "Gamthrop City. It's been a long time since I've been here. Those walls are for protection from the wild herds of Leknag beasts. Be careful. Let me do the talking down there. They don't like humans." As he exits the compartment with a grumble, you realize that he didn't quite tell you everything he should have. That's when you spot the vapor trails in the sky below you. 2 Z-95 headhunters, starfighters, and easily a match for your slow, bulky vessel, are climbing through the atmosphere to meet your ship. The ancient fighters are splitting, one ship coming in on you from the left, and one from the right. A real universe. Part of keeping the player's suspension of disbelief is the feeling that they are interacting with a real universe. As you saw in the Star Wars movies, and the novels Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, the Star Wars universe is changing, yet consistent at the same time. Consistency is essential to the player's suspension of disbelief. If Tatooine is a desert world the first time the characters visit, it should still be a desert planet when they come back. If there's a droid repair shop on the corner of a particular street, if the characters walk down that street the next day, The shop should still be there, or it should be a good reason why if it isn't. Things do change in the Star Wars universe, just as they change in real life. The Empire is defeated at the end of Battle of Endor, as shown in Return of the Jedi, and the Rebel Alliance takes control of the galaxy, naming itself the New Republic. In Star Wars A New Hope, Luke Skywalker is an impressionable youth. In Heir to the Empire, he is the first in a new line of Jedi Knights. Han Solo ends his career as a smuggler and marries a princess from Alderaan. People can grow older, children are born, businesses come and go, governments rise and fall, and friendships are formed and broken. However, all of these changes happen for a reason. They aren't arbitrary. If there is a dramatic change in a setting or a character's personality, there had better be a good reason for that change. A good way to maintain consistency is to take notes about your use of settings and characters. Write down how you describe a planet, or how a Gamemaster character acts when dealing with the characters. Keep all these notes filed and organized. If an element is used again, pick out the card, decide if you need to change some things about the characteristics, decide the reason for the change, and then drop that element into the adventure. Of course, the players don't necessarily have to know the reason for the change. In fact, the mystery of a major change may be enough to motivate the characters to investigate. But you should know why these changes occur. And with that, we finish the first part of Chapter 2. There are other sections on how scenes and rounds work, designing adventures, and running them. I might skip the scenes and rounds section and do the two regarding designing adventures and running them. They're pretty basic, but it's always good to come back to the fundamentals from time to time. Well, thanks for watching. The Cat Child and I would like to wish you a wonderful rest of your day.